Welcome back to Life Simplified. This is Ashley, and I will be your host for today. And if you've been listening, you know that this is our throwback season, and we are taking a look at some of our favorite episodes throughout 2024 and just revisiting, checking them out, seeing if we've made any changes or if we have put any of these ideas into practice. And then immediately following this introduction, we will replay the episode for you. So we hope that you will give it a listen if it's your first time, or even if it's just a revisit for you as well. We are also in the planning stage for 2025, which is really hard to believe. We will be starting our third season here in just a couple of weeks. And if you have any ideas for podcast episodes, we would love to hear that because we definitely want to be providing information that you want to hear. So feel free to reach out to us on our social media pages. We are on Instagram, Life Simplified Podcast. We're also on Facebook, or you can email us at lifesimplifiedpodcast@gmail.com. If you enjoy these episodes, we would love for you to share them on your social media pages. Let's talk about the episode that I picked. And I always enjoy a lot of our episodes, but I really enjoy our mental health month. And I actually chose one of those episodes, and I had a hard time choosing between the four that we had this year. So I would encourage you to go back to May and listen to all of them. But the one we're going to talk about today is the harmful and helpful coping strategies. I don't want to give too much away, but in the episode, we did talk about some different strategies that individuals use that are not positive coping mechanisms. And then we flipped that and offered some ideas for some positive coping strategies. And those included things like mood boosters, basic needs, and processing our feelings. So let's stop there. And I've got my ladies here. And shout out to Amanda. She is on maternity leave. So we are thinking about her and wishing she was right here. But Joni and Tiffany are going to let us in on some positive coping strategies that either they have been using this year or even a new one that they picked up after this episode.
So for me, I think whenever I think about coping skills and getting through tough times or when you're struggling, I think it's all about relationships and relationships on all levels. So we are created for relationship, and I think maintaining relationships with people that you feel safe with, that you can process your feelings in a judgment-free, safe space is really, really important. And that's what I cling to, is I have like a small handful of people that I truly trust, and I value their opinions. And I know that if I say this doesn't leave this room, it doesn't leave this room. But I also know that they're going to give me solid feedback. So not just cosign my nonsense. They're going to give me some things to think about and consider. But then also for me, it's knowing myself, and I've been trying to really work to know me on a deeper level, to know what makes me tick, what I enjoy, and that's all about setting those strong boundaries and saying this is something that I'm not willing to do or budge on, but then also letting the good stuff in. And then relationship for me with my spiritual connection with, for me, it's going to church, it's going to my small group, my Bible study, and being involved in that way. And because I know for me, when I stay connected in that way, I'm in a better mindset. And so I think those are the three things that I lean towards when I'm looking for that, is relationship with myself, with others, and with God for me.
And I think that's great, pointing out how important relationships are. In many of our episodes, we talk about relationships. In our throwback from last week, we talked about relationships. Relationships are key in so much. So if you don't have those people in your life that you can go to process those feelings, that's a first step. Like, let's find those people. Let's find that core group that you can truly trust.
Well, for myself, I was sitting here listening to Tiffany talk about hers, and it's like mine's kind of in a way the opposite. Me trying to not be me. Sometimes I say things. I talked about it in Tiffany's episode last week, far as how I have to sit back and think before I act. My children are all young adults, and sometimes I like to insert myself, and my mental health when I insert myself is not always the best. So I have tried really hard to not give my opinion or place myself into their whatever's going on in their life. They know I'm there if they need me. So for myself and my mental health, I've tried to step out of their lives, and me putting boundaries on myself to not step into theirs. My kids would never say, "Mom, leave me alone," but I also know they need to learn things on their own. So, like I said, I've tried to be I still do, but I try really hard not to be, inserting myself in there.
I love that you said boundaries, because when you were saying that, I was like, that's the same. It's just different. And I think that's like the beauty of this, is that everybody looks at this differently and everybody needs something different. But at the end of the day, it was still boundaries, and we can put boundaries on ourselves because we know if there are certain things that we need parameters around for ourselves. So I love that.
It's one of them things, if they want my opinion, they're going to ask. I don't need to insert my opinion unless they ask. So I've really tried to work on that this year. And sometimes it's very frustrating. Sometimes I may vent, and sometimes I may not say nothing to anybody. But that's what I've really tried to work on and change this year.
Yeah, I think that's great. Immediately, I thought boundaries. So when you said that, I was like, boundaries. It is. While it's not the exact same situation, it's still kind of the same process, putting in those boundaries.
Putting boundaries on myself.
Well, hey.
And it's still that too, like awareness. Like that's been our mantra, but just being aware of ourselves and what we need. I don't know. It gets me excited.
Yeah. And then I have really been working on processing my feelings and really trying to figure out why something frustrates me if I'm frustrated, because I can't, I like things to be kind of a certain way. And if it makes me sound kind of controlling, and I don't really like that word, but I'm like, but I know what is best. I want you to do this because this is what is going to be best. But why am I thinking that? So that didn't make any sense. I'm gonna
no, it does, because
it does make
routines
sense.
make us feel safe. There's security in knowing what comes next, which is why even though kids fight routines, they need routines because then they feel safe and secure, and they're not guessing. But when we get to a certain point and my routine is infringing on somebody else, then maybe my routine is controlling them.
Right. So I've been trying to process why I think that it needs to be this. Certain things need to be a certain way.
But also in that spin, sometimes we see things that they don't see as well. And that is why we feel that it needs to be this certain way.
True. But I have been working on why do I think something needs to happen this way, or why am I irritated because X, Y, and Z happened. So I've been trying to think through those rather than just react and be like, well, now I'm annoyed. So But I am excited I have already listened to this episode again, but I'm excited for everyone else to listen to this episode again. And maybe it's just a reminder of these healthy coping mechanisms and one that you can pull. The holidays can be a stressful time, and we may need to use a variety of coping strategies. So we hope that you will choose a variety of the positive coping strategies and avoid those negative ones. As always, if you have any ideas for us, please reach out and enjoy this throwback.
Sometimes life is messy. Have you ever wished you could refocus your mind, home, relationships, and work life? Join us as we use research-based information to make practical changes and simplify life. This is Life Simplified.
Welcome to Life Simplified. Today is the last episode in our 4-week series for Mental Health Awareness Month. If you have joined us for any of our episodes so far in May, you know that we are talking all things mental health. And as we have done for the last 3 weeks, we're going to be pulling all of our resources for today's episode from the mentalhealthamerica.org Mental Health Awareness Month Toolkit for this year. So we've had some really good discussions so far this month, but this episode is the one I've been really excited about all month long, because this is the episode where we're going to give you some tools. We're going to give you some resources and some things that you can do to make a difference in your mental health and how you're feeling, and how to just kind of begin coping with some of those emotions that can be difficult for us to know what to do with them. So we're going to be pulling our information from 2 different publications from the Mental Health America Toolkit. And we're going to start today with helpful versus harmful ways to manage your emotions. And so we all know that we have emotions. We have a variety of emotions. We feel them every day. We feel them multiple times a day, maybe multiple emotions every minute, depending on what we're going through. And so there are some harmful ways that people deal with their negative emotions. And so as we get started, we're going to talk about some of the things that we don't really want to do, things that are not super helpful for us when we're trying to process through our emotions. And then later on, we're going to get into building our coping toolbox and really talking about some things that may be more helpful as we begin to talk about and cope with the things that we are experiencing. There are a few things, ladies, that we do without thinking about it, but they're not super helpful. When you think about negative emotions and maybe some ways that people cope with them in a not healthy way, what do you think of? What are just some of the things that come to mind when you think about, like, that's not the greatest coping skill, but we do it?
Outburst.
Yeah. Like, we just let it out. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's not pretty, not cute, but it comes out.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
Comfort food.
Yes, comfort food, right? Yeah. Yeah. We're like, we throw something at it that feels good. We're like, I'm going to
Yeah.
feel good for this moment and not think about that thing. So, yeah, absolutely.
Sarcastic tone, really just, or a hateful tone.
Yeah. Yeah. We kind of like take it out on others, or we deflect. Like, maybe we say what we mean, but we don't mean what we say, and we try to like skirt around the issue with a joke or a snide comment, and it comes out twisted, right? But I think the thing that we're hearing and we know is, when we have negative emotions, they are going to come out. We're going to feel them and we're going to do something with them, but how we cope with them is really going to determine how we and others get to experience our negative emotions. So the first one I'm going to bring up here, and as soon as I say it, we're all going to recognize it, and it is denial. Denial is when a person ignores their feelings or does not accept that they are dealing with a challenging situation. Anybody here ever experienced some denial?
Absolutely.
Denial can be strong, right? Like we can like completely convince ourselves that we're not going through something, we're not feeling it, we just shove it away. But we know that typically denial does not solve the problem, and typically it makes it a lot worse. So when we deny our feelings don't go away. Like they don't just magically disappear. They're still there, and they even tend to build up and even get stronger over time. And so this can lead a person to exploding. So that outburst that Jenny talked about, or acting out in a harmful way. And so what I like to explain this as, like when I'm talking to clients in a therapy session and I'm trying to explain to them how, dangerous shoving our emotions down is and ignoring them and denying them, is it's like taking a bottle of soda and shaking it up and shaking it up and shaking it up, and then finally deciding that you're going to open it because you've shook it up too much. And what does it do? It explodes. And it is a hot mess. It's everywhere. It's yuck. It causes problems. It's chaotic. And an exploding soda can is just chaos. And it leaves a mess, and it takes time to clean it up. And that's what happens with our emotions when we deny them. When we push them down, we suppress them, we pretend like they're not there. They build up and they build up and they build up, and then they explode. And then we have a big mess that's not always easy to clean up. So, denial is never a helpful way of dealing with our emotions. Now, another negative way or harmful way we can deal with negative emotions is with withdrawal. Okay. And we have to kind of talk about this one a little bit because there's some caveats to withdrawal. So, withdrawal is when a person doesn't want to be around or participate in activities with other people. So, we withdraw ourselves from activities, from events, from other people. And so this isn't the same as just needing to be alone every now and then, because we all need alone time. We all need our space sometimes. But if this is something we're doing because we are just not wanting to deal with our emotions, then it can be really dangerous. And for some people, it can even be a warning sign of depression. And so it's something we really want to pay attention to in ourselves and others. Some people might withdraw because being around others takes a lot of energy for them, or they feel really overwhelmed. This is especially true for many neurodivergent people who really need that alone time, because too much stimulation is just, it's a lot, and they can't. They need to have some time alone to recharge their social and their sensory batteries, and taking that me time is good. That's actually part of their healthy coping tool. But that's for a certain subset of the population. There's a certain reason. It's not avoidance. Okay. Avoidance is different. That's like just me not wanting to face what I'm going through. So people may also withdraw if they have behaviors that they're ashamed of. So sometimes people withdraw themselves from people or places or situations because they're embarrassed and they don't want someone to find out what they are doing or what they have done. And so they can hide themselves away for that reason. But what we know is when we withdraw ourselves, it comes with its own set of issues and concerns. And so people who withdraw themselves to cope with their emotions tend to have extreme loneliness. So loneliness becomes a big, big problem. There's a lot of misunderstanding because there's not communication taking place when we're withdrawing ourselves from other people. There can be a lot of anger, a lot of distorted thinking, because when I spend a lot of time alone with myself in my head, I can convince myself of things that are not super healthy sometimes. And so my thinking gets a little off. And this next sentence, I underlined it on the sheet. That when I was reading through the toolkit, I was like, yes, we need to interact with other people to keep us balanced. So even if you find yourself being someone who feels like you're an introvert, or you are neurodivergent and you need that time alone, you still need some level of interaction with other people to help keep you balanced. We are meant to have relationships. And so we cannot just hide away. So if withdrawal is how you're handling your emotions, it may not be helping in the ways that you think that it's helping. Another thing that people tend to do when they are dealing with negative emotions is aggression. And I think we kind of talked about that too at the beginning. Like, we get angry, we can be really aggressive, but aggression for our purposes here is when a person uses force, threats, or ridicule to show power over others. People do this a lot of times when they don't feel good about themselves and who they are. And so they take their emotions out on other people, and making someone else feel bad makes them feel better and sometimes even less alone. While this may help you feel better for half a second, it will not help you in the long run. It's very harmful to you, and it's harmful to the person that you're putting down to try and make you feel better. So it's really a lose-lose in the long run. And so a lot of times this aggression, this way of coping with negative emotions is what leads to bullying. And so that's where we see someone who you would call a bully. Typically, they are exhibiting aggression, and they are trying to cope with their own emotions by putting them on someone else, and no one wins in that scenario. So that's not a helpful behavior either. The next one is self-harm. And self-harming behaviors, there's a lot there. We're not going to dig real deep for the purposes of this. Again, everything is in the toolkit, so I encourage you to go there. And then I'll also give you some resources of people you can talk to if you need to talk deeper about this topic. But self-harm can take many forms. So it can be cutting. It can be not allowing oneself to eat. So starvation could be a form of self-harm. Binging and purging is a form of self-harm. Just participating in dangerous behaviors just to do that can be part of self-harm. And people typically self-harm not because they want to hurt themselves. It's not about suicide. It's not about hurting themselves. It's about feeling like they have control over their emotional pain by feeling physical pain. And so there's a whole lot there. And for our purposes today, I don't want to dig much deeper, but I do want to encourage you that if this is a coping mechanism you've been using, I want you to reach out to someone who's a professional and can talk you through this, because it can turn into a very, very, very harmful and very serious coping mechanism for you, especially because we know self-harming behaviors are not meant typically for suicide, but crisis can happen if something goes too far. And so we don't want that to be the case. Please stay with us and listen for more ways you can reach out to professionals. I'm going to go through all of those before we finish this episode. And then the last one that we're going to talk about that is not a helpful way to deal with negative emotions is substance use. And substance use can look like a lot of things. For this purposes, we're talking about drugs and alcohol. But in the beginning of the episode, like, we thought about like one way we can cope is eating comfort food. And in excess, that could be a not helpful behavior as well. And so, but for this, substance use is when people turn to alcohol and other drugs to make themselves feel better or numb about painful emotions or situations. And I'm going to read directly from the publication for this piece because it's important. I want you to hear this. Alcohol and drug use can damage the brain, making it need higher amounts of substances to get the same effect. Over time, this can lead people to feel they need to use substances in order to feel normal, especially if there are emotions that have never been properly dealt with that underlie substance use. They may eventually feel desperate that this habit has gotten out of control, and that can lead to other issues like depression and suicidal thoughts. And so it can get much, much deeper from there. And we do know that substance use and overdose related deaths have been on the rise since the pandemic. And so that's something we really want to be aware of. We really want to pay attention to that in ourselves and in others so that we can reach out and make connections for help. If this is what we've been using to cope. Okay, so those are the ways that are not so great that sometimes we deal with our emotions. But this next part is the good news. The good news is there are so many positive things we can do and good ways that we can begin to cope with our emotions. And so we're talking now about building our coping toolbox. And so a coping toolbox is just a collection of skills and techniques and items and suggestions that you can turn to when you start feeling anxious or distressed. It's basically like your safety net. It's just like a list or a box of things that you can turn to when the day is just being a lot for you and you need something else. And so we're going to talk about different categories of this. So if you're starting from scratch, that's fine, because this worksheet has so many ideas that by the end of it, you're going to have a whole list of coping skills that you can turn to. And that's exciting. And that's why this is my favorite episode of the month, because I like giving you the resources. So here are some ideas. The first category of coping skills we're going to talk about are mood boosters. So just going to throw it out there before I give you some of these ideas, ladies. What do you think of when you think of something that's a mood booster for you? Like if you were building your coping toolbox, what would be in your mood booster? What just kind of gives you a little like lift in how you're feeling?
Things that make me happy.
Yeah. Yeah. What's one of your favorite things? Like what is something like without fail, it's going to make me happy?
My grandgirls.
Yes. Your people.
Yeah, my people.
Our people make us happy. That's right.
Yeah.
So they are mood boosters. Very good.
Maybe like a playlist or an upbeat music that you have.
Yeah, like I'm gonna play my jam. I'm gonna put that on my feel good jam. Now we all have not feel good jams.
Right. Feel good jam.
Yeah, don't put on your sad list, because that's not what we're going for here. But put on something that makes you want to dance, something you can sing to. That song you get loud in your car and you drive by and people think, what are they doing? And you're like, I'm having a good time. Come join the party.
I like to be in the sun. So out in the
Yes.
sunshine.
Absolutely. That definitely mood booster. I think it's an attitude booster too. It's like I see sunlight. For me, I would say like I really am loving my back porch swing. And so almost every day, as long as it's like not too chilly, because I stay cold, but I like to go out there and just swing for a little while. It's peaceful. I can look at the farm, get some fresh air, and just like take the sights and the sounds of being outdoors. And so I really enjoy that. So that is a mood booster for me. But I'm gonna go through some other suggestions that they have on this list, so that those of you who are listening can start thinking about some mood boosters to put in your toolkit. So there are things like you can watch a funny YouTube video, because we know laughter really is a mood booster. Play with an animal. I know so many people are animal people. So if that is you, like grab your puppy, your kitten, your rabbit, your whatever your thing is. And I think that always is uplifting. This is one that I would not have thought of, but I kind of like it because it is a mood booster, I would think. Watching a movie you loved when you were younger. It's like one of your favorite movies from your childhood, because I think that the nostalgia of it all just takes us back to that time in our life when we were a little more carefree and innocent. And so it can kind of just put us in a different headspace. So I thought that was a fun one. Reorganize your room. There's something about sometimes like I just need to shake up my space, just feel fresh, that can lift your mood. Make a list of places you want to travel or things you want to see in your own town. Now, this one spoke to me because I think planning trips puts me in an even better mood than being on the trip. Like I think the whole process is a mood booster to me, the exploring and planning and researching. So that's one that could be a mood booster.
I'm going to go back to the one you talked about far as
Yeah.
maybe rearranging your room.
Yeah.
So this week, my office looks like disaster. It has for a while. You come in, put your stuff down, go do another program. Well, my bright idea, I decided I'm going to move around my office this week. So, and it's changed my outlook on different things with, the work in my office and that, because, sometimes your office is just like, you don't, it's just
you
one
feel
of them
bogged down.
moods. Yeah, it pulls you down. And actually doing that this week, that's funny that you said that, but yeah.
I love that. So you that.
Actually, yeah, I
You
actually
didn't
did.
know, but
Yeah,
I love
my
it.
staff support stays like, what are you doing? So I just need a change. Just needed a change.
I love it. See, it works. So we can that one works. I think that's great that you did that and you could see the difference without even expecting to see the difference. And then the last one for mood boosters is like affirmations, repeating affirmations, positive statements, maybe things that have a personal meaning to you, something that helps you to feel calm or lifts up your self-esteem. Some people don't like that. Some people think those things are kind of goofy or whatever. But if you like certain sayings or verses or inspirational quotes or things, like surround yourself with those things because sometimes just reading a positive message throughout the day can really change our outlook and it can be a mood booster. So that's our first set that goes in our toolbox. And I think everybody had something. So that's good. The next one is so like common sense that we probably forget it the most. So this one is address your basic needs. And I think so much we forget. We think we need to go above and beyond and find some like really deep, meaningful coping skill. And sometimes we just need to address our human needs. So these are things like eat a healthy snack. Have I had something good to eat today? Is my body not being fueled properly? And that's affecting my mood. Drink a glass of water. Again, how often, like, oh my goodness, I'm so dehydrated because we just didn't focus in on that. And that will affect our mood. This one is huge. And I highlighted it for myself because it definitely works. And I've even like taught my kids this along the way is take a shower or a bath. Sometimes there's just something like so like relaxing and resetting to just taking a hot shower or a hot bath and just kind of it's almost like a timeout. Like it just kind of resets you and just gets you in a better headspace. So that's one I like to use. Taking a nap. Maybe you didn't sleep enough. Maybe your sleep is off and you were just tired. Like we know when our kids are cranky and they're in a mood and they're crying and they're like you can tell their emotions are all over and we're like you need a nap. Like we sometimes need to do that for ourselves. We need to be like, you know what? I need a nap. I am not firing on all cylinders because I did not rest myself the way I needed to. And then this last one is funny, but I do think sometimes it can definitely like reset our confidence or like kind of like get us in a new mindset. But it literally says brush your teeth, which is funny because I only think about brushing my teeth like when I get up in the morning and before I go to bed at night. But like, I don't know. I guess if you're in a funk and you're feeling funky, go brush your teeth and maybe you'll feel a little fresher. And it'll put you in a different space. Like it's different, but you know what? I'm not big on trying it. So that's that kind of segment of it. And I think, it makes sense, but we forget it an awful lot. So we've got our mood boosters. We've addressed our basic needs. Now, this is the big one. And so, everybody take a deep breath. Process feelings. Okay. Yeah. This is the one that we're like, no. Those other ones sounded fun. They were all right. I can do them, but I don't want to do this one, but we have to. So, here are some ideas. And the first one is one that like I'll harp on all day long. And I think it's important. And it's make a gratitude list because there's nothing that will turn around your day better than focusing on all the things you have to be grateful for. Because typically, when we are in a yuck mood, we are focused on everything but the things we have to be grateful for. And so, just resetting your mind, changing the way you're thinking about it can make a huge impact. And I tell people sometimes because I like to go and teach in different places. Sometimes I'm in substance use recovery centers, sometimes I'm just all over the place. And I tell them, like, listen, you can start so small. Like, you don't have to have a huge list. If you wake up and you're like, I'm grateful that there is air in my lungs today, cool, start there. And you don't have to have anything else. That's it. That's enough. That's a starting point. It's a gratitude and we'll build on it. And so if you're listening and you're like, I don't know what I'm grateful, there's nothing. My life has been rough. It's a struggle. Find something as small as that. If you've got oxygen in your lungs, if you woke up this morning, put it on your list and you can go from there. So, don't think it has to be some big, wild, long list of all kinds of things because that's not the case. Now, I like this next one. Punch a pillow. Because why not? And you're not getting in trouble for punching a pillow, but don't punch your friend or your coworker or your family member. That's not good. But punch a pillow and it won't punch back. And it also won't call the cops. So there you go. Punch the pillow. It's a good call. The
Is
next
that
one's
about like just screaming out of the
that's
top of your lungs? Would
Jody,
that be like, the
that's the
pillow
next
thing?
one. That's the next one on the list. You got it. Yes. Scream.
May or may not have used that this week. Just saying.
I saw a meme the other day that said, "Hey, do you want to go outside and scream really loud and then go get something to eat?" It's like
I
I
do.
need a friend that does that.
I do. I think, you know what? I do. Sometimes you're like, I just want to scream it out. Just let me get it out of me and then we can move on. But it's too much energy inside of me. Like let it out. So you're right, Joni. That was literally the next one on the list. Scream. Just let it out. Maybe don't scream like at work. Like maybe find a like place where no one's gonna be like, what is going on with you? But yeah, I do say thumbs up to the screaming. Let yourself cry. And sometimes we will do everything in our power till our eyeballs sting to not cry. And I understand there are times and places where we don't want to cry. We don't want to, we don't feel safe. It doesn't feel like a safe space. And that's okay. But if I'm never allowing myself to feel my emotions, because tears are just emotions. Like we get so scared of them, but they're just basic, guys. They're like it's just natural. It's natural emotion leaving your body, and we need that. It's like detoxifying. It's actually a really solid process for our body, which is why we usually get really sleepy afterwards and we go take the best nap of our life after a good cry. So let the tears flow every now and then. It's okay to cry. I tell my that all the time. Like cry it out sometimes. And if you don't like to cry around people, cry in the shower. I like this one. Rip paper into small pieces. I mean, it's kind of like punching a pillow, but like get a little aggression out. Like just rip that piece of paper up and throw it away. All you did was make confetti. Yay, you. Now you can have a party. You got the feelings out. So that's one. Vent. And if you listen to last week's episode, we talked about venting and how sometimes we just need to talk about things, not fix them, just get them out of us. So venting can be a very good way for us to process our feelings because we just need to hear it out loud. And if I hear myself out loud, then sometimes I can come up with my own solution to my problem. I just need to talk through it. So get it out there, vent it out. All right. So those are kind of some things you can do for your toolbox to process your feelings. I like them. We had some good those are some good options there. So try those on, see what fits for you. The next kind of grouping of things we can put in our coping toolbox is volunteering and acts of kindness. And so on different episodes, we've talked about the importance of volunteering. We've talked about the importance of random acts of kindness and things like that. But they can really help uplift our mood when we're feeling lots of negative emotions. And so this can be a good thing to remember in your toolbox. So thinking about doing something nice for someone you know, just like being like, you know what, I'm in a yucky mood, but I can do something to brighten somebody else's day because inevitably, when I do something nice for someone else, I will get rewarded as well because it feels good. And so it can uplift my mood as well. Help a stranger. I think sometimes we feel even better when we help a stranger because, like, I don't know them. I don't know who they are. I don't know if they deserve it or if they earned it or if they're good people, but I did something for them and I didn't want anything else in return. And so that can feel really, really good and be really uplifting. Volunteering our time is good because sometimes we have time that all we are doing is sitting around and worrying and stressing and overthinking and maybe getting outside of our concern at the moment and going and helping somebody else with something that they're dealing with can really help us not to diminish or to minimize what we're feeling, but it can help us find fresh perspective and just distract us from our struggles for a little while, and that can be a positive thing. And that person can probably really help, can probably really use your help. And so that's a good thing for them too. So that's one of those win-win categories. All right. The next category is problem solving. So this is another kind of grouping you can have in your toolkit. So make a list of potential solutions to problems. I mean, that's just like problem solving 101 is brainstorming. And sometimes you can pull in a friend or family member for this because it's good to get other perspectives, other ideas. But having many options is a good thing instead of just one kind of idea of how to solve a problem. Make a list of your strengths. I love this because we talk about the things we're grateful for, and that's good in our gratitude, but we don't often make lists of things that we see are positive attributes that we have, things that we're strong in, areas that we excel. And it can be really nice to kind of start forming that list of like, I know this is what I'm good at, and this is where I have something to offer. And that can really be good for our self-esteem and help us to identify like what my role is in problem solving and how I can begin to help others that are in other situations. So that's a good, strong suggestion. If a person has upset you, talk with them directly. Sometimes we talk about them to everyone but them. And we need that sometimes. Sometimes we have to process our emotion because we don't want to go into it like with our anger. We don't want to go with our aggression that we talked about earlier. That's not helpful. That was one of our harmful ways. But once we've talked it through, once we know what we're feeling, it's really good to go to that person directly and use your feeling statements. So your I feel whatever the feeling is, when whatever the thing is that happened, and if we want to say because we can, we don't have to because our feeling is good enough by itself. And then we can even add on next time, could you please blank? So I'm telling you how I feel, why I feel that way, and how it would be great for things to go differently in the future. And that can really help us feel a little bit more control when we feel like we've lost our power over a situation because we're able to set a boundary and also express what we need at the same time. So that can be a really helpful thing. All right, the next grouping is hobbies and stress relievers. So, when you ladies think about hobbies and stress relievers for your toolkit, does anything in particular like come to mind?
So I might be the strange of our group, but you probably already know exercise, going outside, taking a walk. That's a stress reliever for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I mean, maybe it might sound odd to you, but I think it really makes a lot of sense to be out in nature, fresh air, endorphins flowing, exercise, all of that's good stuff. We know it's definitely a mood booster and a stress reliever. So I think that's a great one.
And I don't think it's strange. I enjoy taking a walk, and I don't do a lot of jogging or running, but occasionally if I'm feeling super stressed and have all of this anxiety built up inside, then I'll feel like I just need to run. And so I might do that for a little bit, but I like to go even to a fitness class so
Mhm.
that I am not only by myself exercising, but I'm with others. And so that
Mhm.
kind of takes my mind off of whatever is stressing me out or whatever has me bummed out because I always feel better after I move my body.
Mhm. Yeah, you're getting the exercise and the social aspect, which we know is really important for our health as well.
I know I've said it in the past in our other podcast episodes, but listening to books,
Mhm.
it's kind of my time that I decompress everything or if just don't want to think about something, going, listening to my book for a little bit and then going back to whatever the task is or whatever the situation is, kind of helps me just kind of be able to move through it or work through it or whatever. So,
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a good one. And I was thinking it's funny because I've mentioned a few different things that I like to do that are stress relievers, but one that I don't know that I've talked about very much and was one that I got to do this past weekend. And I just remember being like, oh, this is like I feel so free. This is such a stress reliever for me. And that is like riding with my husband on his motorcycle. So, first of all, if you know me at all, like so far out of character for anything that I would want to do, but I absolutely do love it. And I got to ride with him last weekend. And every time I do, I have the same feeling like I just feel really free. Like I feel I'm outside. I'm like only, it's just me and my thoughts because it's very quiet. But there's fresh air and the scenery is great because we, get to ride through the countryside. And it just, for me, it really like lets me reset and just sort of let go of all of the chaos that can kind of we get entangled in throughout the days with all of our things that we have to do. So that is one that like I'm not even driving, I'm just riding, but it still is really helpful. And so it can come in all shapes and sizes. I think we all had varying things that are hobbies or stress relievers for us. And so if you're listening, like literally there's limitless options here. Some of the suggestions that Mental Health America has on this publication is learn something new, and that can literally be anything. So an extension office is a great place to learn something new. So you might want to check that out and see what is offered where you're at. Creating things, so craft projects, painting, drawing, writing, so poetry, writing in journals, anything like that. Playing a game or doing a puzzle. My kids love games and puzzles and just like, again, like social time. Like Ashley going to a group where she's exercising with other people, playing a game is also got that social component. And this last one I starred because it is get a plant and start a garden. And so if you have not listened to last month's podcast, the whole month of April was dedicated to gardening. If that is a hobby or a stress reliever that you would be interested in, we encourage you to go back and listen to those episodes for more information. And that may be something that you can put in your coping skills toolkit. So that is something I want to make sure that we talked about. So we have 2 more categories. The next category is relaxation exercises. And so I'm going to just kind of quickly go through some of these suggestions. One is you can practice belly breathing, and that's not something that you know how to do. You can find all kinds of like guided things on social media and on the internet. So look up belly breathing and you should be able to find a tool to talk you through what that process is. You can try progressive muscle relaxation. Again, you can find information on how this works, but it's basically, just going through each muscle in your body and tensing them and then releasing so that you can feel the stress kind of melting away from one muscle group to the next. And so I encourage you to look that up and give that a try. Play with a fidget toy. I will say, and I think the ladies in here will back me up. We were in a training a couple months ago, and they handed out all these different fidget toys, and I had such a great time playing with a fidget toy. I listened to the seminar, and it didn't distract me at all. If anything, it probably helped me focus in a little bit better because I had something to do with my hands while I was listening to a seminar. So that may be good for you. And there's so many different things from Play-Doh to just there's lots of options out there. Just look for fidget toys and you can find kind of a vast array of options. Going for a walk. We talked about that hobbies and stress relievers, but it's also a relaxation exercise. So going for a walk is always good. Finding a guided meditation. There's all kinds of things out there on the internet. Guided meditation can be really good just to help you kind of calm down and center and focus. Doing yoga, that can be good for stretching your muscles and relaxation. Read a book, we kind of hit on that too, or listen to a book. If reading is not your thing, listen to it. Same outcome. Listen to music. You can listen to a podcast. This podcast is a good choice, but I'm sure there's lots of other ones out there you can listen to. And then again, listen to an audiobook. This one's big too. Sometimes in order to relax, we have to unplug. And so maybe part of your relaxation exercise toolkit is that I'm feeling overwhelmed. I have a lot going on and I'm going to unplug for a set amount of time or certain hours during the day so that I can just kind of get away from that and focus in on things that are not in the tech world. So that may be me turning off my phone, tablet, computer, whatever that looks like for you can be really important. And then using your 5 senses. And so we want to think about things that tap into our touch, our sight, our hearing, our taste, and our smell. And so like for touch, a stress ball, silly putty, a pet, a favorite blanket can be good for sense of touch. Hearing, the mamas and daddies might not love these suggestions, but clicking a pen can be good for that if you're needing something to de-stress. Popping bubble wrap is always a good pastime. I think everybody can enjoy, and maybe listening to a calming playlist. Visually, looking at photos of loved ones, snow globes can be like visually stimulating, and then reading affirmation quotes can be good. For taste, things like mints, tea, sour candy, things that just kind of have like a stronger flavor to them, and we can really be mindful and pay attention to those. And then for smell, it could be scented lotions, essential oils, candles, whatever it is that you like, because everybody's going to have a different preference on that. So we've talked about numerous things we can put in our toolkit. Like, hopefully there's something for you. The thing that you should know is everyone's toolkit will look different, and you may put something in your toolkit and it may work today, and you may try it again and it doesn't fit anymore, and that's okay. And you can constantly be putting new items in your toolkit to try and to use. And so whether your toolkit is just a list of these things that you pull out of your drawer when you're feeling like the day's been a lot and you need to kind of reset and read through some of these suggestions, or if your toolkit is your list and then some of these items that we talked about that help you along with your day, that's okay. It's for you. So the last thing that I'm going to put in here that is part of your toolkit and very, very important is asking for help. Sometimes part of our toolkit is texting a friend. Sometimes it's asking someone to just sit with us, maybe not even listening to us vent, just being there so that we're not alone. It can be calling a family member. It can be calling a friend just to chat. Or if you're in a crisis situation, it can be calling a helpline. The main thing I want you to know is just asking for help is part of that toolkit, and it's so very important. And so make sure that's on your list. If you still feel sad, worried, or scared after trying all these things in your toolkit, because sometimes we try it all and it's just a really tough spot we're in, then you might be showing signs of anxiety or depression. Taking a mental health test at mhascreening.org can help you find out if you're at risk for a mental health condition. So if you're struggling, or if you or someone you know is in crisis, help is available for you. We want you to call or text 988 or chat at 98lifeline.org. You can also reach the crisis text line by texting HELLO, HELLO, to 741741. We hope that you've enjoyed this month. We hope that you've learned and gotten resources for your mental health that you didn't have before. And we hope more than anything that you're able to build and grow your coping toolbox and reach out for help if and when you need it, because help is there and there's always hope. Thank you for joining us. This is Life Simplified.
Thanks for listening to Life Simplified. We are family and consumer sciences agents with the University of Kentucky Cooperative Extension Service. Contact us at lifesimplifiedpodcast@gmail.com.